care-seeking data usually comes from large population-based surveys. This video explores the Demographic and Health Survey, or DHS, showing the fabricated DHS data file used to create the Country X PPAs in the wizard. Other common care-seeking data sources include TB prevalence surveys and the Health Expenditure and Utilization Survey, or HEUS. In this video, we're going to take a close look at the raw DHS data to make sure that it's in the correct format and has all the columns we need to complete a PPA using the wizard. We are now looking at a DHS dataset in RStudio. It's important to know that you do not need R in order to use the PPA wizard. The purpose of this video is to demonstrate how the DHS file meets the data requirements for a care-seeking data source. And because the file is too large to view in Excel, we're looking at it here in R. We see that this is a data file due to the .dta extension. The environment pane on the right shows us that the DTA file has been read in as a data frame, and this data frame contains 3,898 observations of 3,242 variables. When we look at the raw data, we see that all of the variables have numeric codes, V001, V002, and so on. Note that because this is a fabricated data set, most of the variables for country X contain all NA values. Only the variables relevant to the PPA contain values. Of course, a real country would have data for most, if not all, of these DHS variables. In order to learn what those numeric codes represent, we'll need to consult the documentation that came along with the DTA file. The DO file is a concise list of all the variables and their codes. The case ID is a unique ID for the respondent to the survey, and we see variables about the survey respondent, including their year of birth, their age, and so on. These variable codes are standardized, so they'll be the same from one country to the next. However, not all countries have data for all variables. Now that we know we are working with raw data on survey respondents, let's verify that the dataset contains the variables or columns that we need. We want to know the health facility type and sector where survey respondents sought care for illness. The variable we use in the Country X PPAs is mother's place of care seeking for their child's fever. We see here item H46A1, place first sought treatment for fever. To determine the possible values for this variable, we'll reference the FRQ file. When we look at the values contained in the column, we see that this variable contains information on the health sector and facility type. For example, we have a value of 12, which is a public hospital, and a value of 21, which is a private hospital. While the variable codes, as in H46A, are standardized, these value codes are not. So it's essential to consult the documentation for your country and determine the types of facilities captured in your DHS. Here we also observe that most of the response values for this variable are NA, because most survey respondents did not seek care for a child with fever. When we get into the PPA wizard, we'll have the opportunity to subset the data to only include the survey respondents who sought care, and we'll subset by this variable, H46A. Now hold on a minute. When we get back to the raw data, we see multiple H46A variables, H46A1, H46A2, and so on. If your DHS has this, these correspond to different children belonging to the same mother. Since our question of interest is the mother's care-seeking behavior, we only include care-seeking for the first child with fever, and thus use the variable H46A1 only. Returning to the FRQ file, we'll note that the DHS also contains a column for region, coded V024, and there are 5 regions included in this data set for Country X: Region A, Region B, Region C, Region D, and Region E. Since the DHS uses weighted sampling in its survey design, DHS datasets include a variable for the sample weights, coded V005. When we get into the PPA wizard, we'll need to identify this sample weight column so that the sample weights can be applied and our PPA reflects the correct percentages for care seeking. Let's look back at our data set again. Now that we've consulted the documentation, we know that this data frame corresponds to 3,898 survey respondents with 3,242 variables related to each of those survey respondents. These variables, represented as columns, include the place where the survey respondent sought care for child's fever, the region in which the survey respondent resides, and the sample weight associated with the survey respondent. Returning to our data cheat sheet, we can verify that our care-seeking dataset from the DHS is in DTA format, contains raw data, includes columns for the health sector and facility type where people sought care, and includes a column for region. Note that in this case, the H46A1 variable fulfills the requirements for both the health sector and facility type column. And this would be the same for other care-seeking variables captured in the DHS, such as care-seeking for child's diarrhea or care-seeking for HIV test. Some data sources may have this information stored in two separate columns, one for health sector and one for facility type, and that is also fine. We finished covering data requirements for all types of data sources. Now we can move on to getting set up in the PPA wizard.